All right. Well, welcome everyone to our In Dialogue series. This week, the Louisiana Children's Museum is excited to be joined again by the Parenting Center at Children's Hospital in New Orleans. My name is Megan Miller, and I'm a gallery manager at the museum. But right now, while the museum building is closed, our team members have been working to bring you new ways to interact with the topics that are most important to our community. Through our In Dialogue series, our goal is to connect you with the resources to continue to support your child's learning and well-being. Our museum and the Parenting Center offer countless experiences to support your child's learning through play. So throughout 2020, the Children's Museum has focused on the theme of being in dialogue. This includes being in dialogue and communicating with our children, friends, family, community, and ourselves. Today, we are focusing on the importance of talking to your children and how to use dialogue in everyday experiences to promote learning. So today we have one session facilitator from the Parenting Center. Her name is Patrice Wright. Prior to joining the Parenting Center team in 2018, Patrice began her career in education as a kindergarten teacher. She then became a math coach, a Louisiana State Department employee, a school administrator, and worked in central office. Throughout her 22 years in education, she thoroughly enjoyed providing professional development and coaching to teachers. Her passion for working within the early childhood sector never faded, and she firmly believes that giving children a solid foundation in their early years sets their path for academic success. She received an undergraduate degree in early childhood education and a master's degree in educational administration from UNO. She is a Louisiana Pathways trainer and a toddler class observer. A mother of one daughter, Patrice teaches school readiness classes for parents of teens, and shares in the staffing of the Metairie Center. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And I will now turn the presentation over to you, Patrice.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here another week to share some school readiness tips. As Megan mentioned, today is all about the power of talking as a teaching tool. So many of you do this quite naturally and just don't even think about the power of talking to your child, whether they are newborn or whether they are 15 for that matter. But for today, because we are mainly focused on the importance of talking at an early age, this session is mainly geared towards students or children around 0 to 5 years old. So today, I will walk you through some tips and pointers. I'll kind of outline what the expected outcomes are in the next slide. But at some point, I'm going to stop and do what's called a brain break, just to allow you an opportunity to process information that you may have heard, or to jot down a question or something that you may need some clarity on. But let's go get started. Let's get started. Throughout this session today, parents will be able to identify some language and communication milestones, learn to make small moments big, and gain tips to increase words when talking, singing, or reading with their child. So this will be our focus for today. Let's look at this handsome baby boy right here. If you have a child that is approximately 9 months old, here is what you should be expecting around this time. Now, as we've done before, we've given developmental milestones. Today it's about language and communication milestones, but just be aware that every child develops differently. So your child may be doing more than this, your child may be doing less. This is just a guide, but it's not etched in stone that every 9-month-old in terms of language and communication will be doing this at this time. My presentation will give you some language and communication milestones for 9 months up to about maybe 2 years old. But if you have a child that's about 2 months old or 5 years old, my recommendation is to see the source at the bottom of the page, which is cdc.gov, and you can definitely go and find out where your child is in terms of language and communication milestones at this time. So let's talk about this 9-month-old. In terms of communication, right now, a 9-month-old understands no, whether you say it verbally or non-verbally. If you say both ways, then they will completely understand. In terms of being able to give some different sounds, you might be hearing something like ma, 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 ba, 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 ba. 9-month-olds are saying this at this time. They can copy sounds and gestures of others. So if there's a sibling in the home that they're close to, siblings may be making noises or soundings, your 9-month-old would be repeating that. And then look at that finger. When I want something, I point to it. If I'm trying to get your attention and tell you something, I'm going to use my finger to point to things. Let's look at what a 1-year-old is expected to do when it comes to language and communication milestones. Respond to simple spoken requests. They're able to use simple gestures like shaking the head and waving by. For those of you who are parents of 1-year-olds, you might be able to relate to this. A lot of head shaking at times, and they're able to independently wave by, and they pretty much feel successful about that. They can make sounds with changes in tone. Speech sounds more like speech, okay? But in terms of tones, they can probably go from a higher to a lower, but all of these are just sounds at this time. A little different from the 9-month-old, you may be able to successfully hear them say mama and dada with exclamations such as uh-oh, and that probably is how it sounds. And they try to say words you say. Again, they're mimicking, but now they're at a point where they're able to possibly demonstrate or repeat what you're saying a little better, where it's clearer to you now than it may have been when they were 9 months old. An 18-month-old, they're able to say several single words, says and shakes the head no. Once again, we're getting to that point now. It's like, I was able to shake my head and say no when I was about 12 months old. But right now at 18 months, I'm pretty firm. I'm pretty confident. My no means no. And again, being able to point to show someone what he or she wants. Here is your 2-year-old. What are they doing at this time in terms of language and communication milestones? They're pointing to things or pictures when they are named. So if you're walking and you point to a dog, they're able to point to the dog, or if you simply say dog, that's within their eye view, then they can definitely point to it as well. They know the names of familiar people and body parts. How often will a 2-year-old, if you've taught them, enjoy playing the game of where's your tummy? And you lift up their shirt and they're excited. What about your ears? Show me your nose. They're able to say sentences with 2 to 4 words, follow simple directions. Go get your bag, go get your shoes. They're able to communicate, are able to understand what you're communicating when you're asking. They're able to repeat words overheard in conversation. So be mindful of your conversations, because your 2-year-old may repeat something that you don't want repeated. And then they're able to point to things in a book. If your evening routines involve reading and you've read a particular book over and over again, when you are identifying things in the book, they may, in an effort to show you they understand, point to the item that you've made mention of. Let's look at what a 3-year-old should be able to do or is recommended to do around this time in terms of language and communication. They can follow a couple more steps than a 2-year-old was able to. So now they're able to follow 2 or 3 steps when you communicate, hey, can you go A and B, or can you go A, B, and C? They can name most familiar things, so they might be able to identify things in a community, identify things in the home. Understand words like in, on, and under, and it's a fun time also, because you know that this is where they are developmentally, to play some games with them. Kind of have it where you say, oh my goodness, here is a ball. I'm going to put the ball under my shirt. I'm going to put the ball in the box. That's just reinforcement to make sure that they understand those positional words, as we call them. They're able to say their first name, age, and sex. That's something that you're probably teaching them or have taught them. Here is your name, here is how old you are, and you are a boy or you are a girl. Friends are important. Those social skills are kicking in at this point. So when you say a friend's name, they get excited. Or if they're in some type of Head Start facility or going to school, when they see their friends, they get excited. So definitely able to identify a friend's name. They say words like I, me, and you, and some plural. Dogs, cars, cats. Actually, cars, dogs, and cats in that order. talks well enough for strangers to understand most of the time. So they may they may say something like, I want juice, or I want to eat, or what have you. So strangers are able to understand this simple language. Carry on a conversation using 2 to 3 sentences. So in terms of a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, an 18-month-old, a 12-month-old, and a 9-month-old, here are all the communication and language milestones that they may be experiencing currently, or if they're not at that age yet, this is ultimately where they're going. So I encourage you to visit CDC so that you can see where your child is developmentally in terms of language and communication, and help them to get to the next stage, or at least know as a parent where they should be developmentally. Here is some information from Talking is Teaching, which is an awareness campaign that we have here at the Parenting Center. So if you look to the graph on the left-hand side, you have the child's age in months towards the bottom. So it goes from 0 months to 12, 24, 36, and 48 months. And then vertically, you have millions of words, 0, 13, 25, 38, and 50. Now, when we talk about number of words addressed, that is simply the number of words spoken in the home. So parents, how many words are they speaking? So when you look in the middle of this particular chart, you see that it's color-coded based on different incomes. For example, the gray is low income, the yellowish oranges is middle, and high. So this graph clearly shows that children from a low income family don't hear as many words as children from a high income family. And so as an educator and as a parent, I feel very strongly about making sure parents understand the power of their words in an effort or in hopes to close that gap. That's a big difference. So low income children are possibly hearing, by the time they are 4 years old, approximately 14 million words. However, children from a high income, by the time they are 4 years old, are hearing close to 50 million words. That's a huge difference. On the right-hand side, we're looking now at the total of the number of words learned. So on the left side, it's parents speaking those words in the home. But on the right-hand side, we're now looking at those words that are learned and fully understood. Again, horizontally, the child's age is 16, 24, 36 months. And then vertically, the total number of words that the child actually learns. So low income family, the child learns somewhere between, say, 300 and, right at about 300 words. However, a child from a high income family is touching possibly, let me move my box for a minute, a little over 1,200 words that they've learned by the time they are 3 years old. So again, this chart clearly shows that there is a difference between the number of words addressed and the number of words learned in low versus high income families. So I feel very strongly about this research and feel the importance of sharing with parents how simple things that they're doing, like simply talking to their kids every day, can make a difference in this research that we've learned from 1995. This particular slide has to do with brain growth. And so we're looking on the left-hand side at the development of a child's brain somewhere around birth. And then the middle column has to do with how much brain growth happens between birth and 6 years old. You can clearly see the difference between the brain growth at birth and then the brain growth at 6 years old. 14 years old, there's not much of a difference. And so again, the importance of sharing this information about the power of talking, or talking is teaching, is pretty important, because this is an opportune time for you to expand your child's brain development and language development if they are somewhere between 0 and 6 years old. Now, this is not for parents to panic. If you're not doing as much talking as you'd like to do, you still have time. This is simply brain development, and why we're stressing the importance of making sure you're doing a lot of talking between 0 and 6 years old. In the community, I mentioned we're doing a Talking is Teaching awareness campaign. So at 2 different birthing facilities, because we feel so strongly about the power of talking, every parent that gives birth at 2 rural or West Jefferson hospitals get a tote bag inclusive of tote bag, has the shirt in it, a couple of books, and then a few milestones for parents to look at as they're navigating their way or as their child is developing. So this is the Parenting Center and Too Small to Fail's way of saying, hey, we believe in the power of talking. We want you to do this on a regular basis, and it starts at birth. If you're in the community, you may see a couple of our signs that are out there. They're in pediatric clinics. We also have a couple of bus shelters where we have advertisement there as well. So maybe if you pass by, you see a bus shelter. Again, it is our way of stressing the importance of talking as a teaching tool, making sure that you're doing it as often as possible. With the message of Talking is Teaching, we stress several things. One, we want to acknowledge that families have strengths already, and there are things that you're probably doing. We just want to encourage you to do those things more. We want to encourage engagement, as many opportunities as you possibly have to encourage or engage your child in some type of talking activity, reading activity, singing activity. The small moments matter. And as you can see from the slide we looked at before, there is clearly a difference between low income and high income families. And what we want to do is continue to stress the importance of helping with brain and language development by doing something that comes really natural to all of us, talking. If you have a 12 to 24-month-old and you have as a part of your normal routine, some type of reading, whether it's transition from bath time to bedtime, if you're reading in the morning, if you're reading during the day, here are just a few tips or pointers on what you, the parent of a 12 to 24-month-old, can do to help stimulate more conversation or do more talking as you're reading a book. So one thing says that you can point and label objects in the book. Your child at this age may not be able to identify what those objects are, but if you do it, then you're putting that language in their head for them to then know if this is a book you're reading on a regular basis. After you've read that book a couple of times, you may not have to point and label the object. They've heard it from you before. They may then be in a position to do it themselves. Ask the child to identify common objects on the page. Now, this isn't something that you would do the first time you're reading, but then again, if you choose to, just to see where your child is developmentally, it's totally up to you. But once you've read the book over and over, instead of identifying those objects every time, ask your child, can you identify what this is? What do you think this is? Expand on the child's verbal initiative. Yes, it's a truck. Good, it's a red truck. We call that extension, where you hear the child say one thing and you add a few additional words to extend what was said to once again increase the vocabulary. And then use books for transition to bed or nap time. So again, if you are a parent of a 12 to 24-month-old and you're looking for ways to help stimulate brain and language development, here are some things that you can do when reading a book. Let's look at it from the eyes or through the lenses of a 24 to 36-month-old. If you are a mom, again, make reading part of the day's activities. So as you are transitioning and going from one place to the next, you know they love the McDonald's sign. They love all of these different other signs that they may see in the community. Don't just pass by. Take the opportunity to call out what that particular sign may be. And then every time you pass, oh, look, there's the golden arch. Oh, look, there is this. Oh, look, there is that. Call their attention to it. If it's a stop sign, stopping at the stop sign, it can be recognition of that particular color. It can be recognition of that particular shape. But in an effort to stimulate language development, you definitely want to call attention to the word. The second one talks about relate the story in the text to the child. If the story is about a dog and you all have a dog at home, oh, their dog is in the story. I wonder what their dog's name is. Our dog's name is Fluffy. So being able to take something that they see and activate the prior knowledge in terms of saying, here's something that you already know. So now we're just going to include it in what we see here in the book. Give the child a chance to complete rhymes in a poem. Later in the presentation, we're going to talk about nursery rhymes, but if you are one that has sang, that sing nursery rhymes, when it gets to the rhyming words, bye bye black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, sir, 3 bags full. So wool and full are the rhyming words in that particular nursery rhyme. So instead of you saying the rhyming words, after you familiarize them with that particular nursery rhyme, see if you can eliminate saying what the rhyming words are and allow them to fill in the blanks. Again, we're talking about using books as transitions. Same is true for the 12 to 24-month-old. And again, here you see it as the last bullet point for 24 to 36-year-old, 24 to 36-month-old. Let's look at what preschoolers or 3 to 5-year-olds, what can you do with them to help stimulate brain and language development? The first one says, let the child try to tell a story while the parent is reading. This is also a great way to let the child complete the story based on what they think is going to happen next. So while you're reading, you can simply stop and say, I wonder what's going to happen next. What do you think is going to happen next? You can also find a way, once they're familiar with the story or the format of a book, to stop in the middle of the book and say, if you had the opportunity to change the ending of this story, what would that be like? So then you're giving them a chance to rewrite the book. You never know, you may have an author on your hand later on. So provide those opportunities as much as possible. Ask open-ended questions, such as what do you think will happen next, as we talked about in the previous one. So steer clear as much as possible of the simple yes, no questions. Allow them to think through by asking open-ended questions that would allow for them to do a little bit more communicating versus just saying yes, no. Try to respond to your child's question about the text as she reads. You have a curious child on your hand if they are between the age of 3 to 5. So as much as those questions come up about either what you're reading, now remember, it may not always be about what you're reading at that moment. Something that you're reading in that book could activate their prior knowledge of something else. So just kind of be prepared and know when they stop and ask you questions, try to make sure you provide those answers and respond to those questions. And then the parent point out letters of the child's name and make the sounds of those letters. The most important letters to a child are the letters in his or her name. So every opportunity you get to point to an M for Megan or an M for Monet, you do that because that's exciting to that child, and there are no other letters that are important to a child outside of the letters in their name. So far we've talked about how you can provide that literacy guidance from 12 to 24-month-olds, for 24 to 36-month-olds, and now for your preschoolers that are between the ages of 3 to 5. So let's talk about how parents can support talking. As a matter of fact, I realize I've been talking for some time now. So here is where I talked about the brain breaks at first. So it'll probably be about a 10-second brain break. Let me stop, allow you to process what was talked about so far, and give you a chance to write down any questions you may have at this time. Okay, so I think we're now ready to talk about how can parents support talking? What are some things that you can be doing at home to support talking of your 0 to 5-year-old? Talk about what you're doing or thinking. Last week, In our readiness session, we talked about being a commentator or a narrator. Throughout your day, as many chances as you get to tell your child what you're doing, tell him or her. You're just going through your entire day giving as much information as you possibly can, knowing in the back of your mind, I feel like this isn't right for me to be talking this much, but just keep in mind that you are modeling language for your child and they are picking it up. Comment on what they're doing or looking at. Oh, I see you're looking out the window at that dog. That's a brown dog. Dogs bark, right? So being able to engage your child in conversation about what they're doing at that moment or what they're actually looking at. Name things they're interested in. If you see them at home and they go pull something that may not be a familiar term to them because it's not where they are developmentally, don't be afraid to name it. Give it a name, and as often as it's pulled out, continue to use that name until they're so familiar with that object that they can communicate what it is themselves. Get down to their level, face to face. So important. Get down there, give hugs, talk about certain things. If you're talking about body parts, here is my nose. I'm going to touch your nose. But you can't touch their nose if you're standing up. So get down to their eye level so that you're able to engage in conversation at a face-to-face level. Tune in and respond to what your child looks at, do, and say. So there are many times where kids might be, playing around their parents at that time and they're engaged in some puzzle or something and the parents are doing something else. They could be cooking, they could be on the phone, they could be talking to someone else. Just take a few minutes and say, okay, every day at this time, if you're a one for schedules, or just make a concerted effort to just sit and watch what your child is doing so that you're tuned in and you respond to what your child's looking at, what they're doing and saying. All I'm asking is that you are a little bit more active in what's going on and not doing something else. So give your child that attention he or she needs so that you can engage in conversation. And wait for their response. As parents, we want to fill in those blanks as quickly as possible. Your child needs just a little bit more time to, first of all, hear the question that you're asking, and secondly, process it. It happens for us as adults a lot faster than it does for a child. So, wait. And in education, we usually say all the way from 1,000 to 10,000. So this may be a little awkward, but this is the amount of time you should be waiting. 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. For some of you, you're probably already like, I'm done, Patrice, I cannot. But that's about the amount of time that you should be waiting to allow your child to respond. Let's talk about more ways that you can support talking in your home. Imitate your child and add words. So if they're doing something silly and having fun, you go ahead and do that imitation as well and add words to describe either what you're doing or what they are doing. Make faces and use gestures. Yes, the faces to describe what's going on, and use your hands or your body to do a whole bunch of other things that's going on as well. Take turns. Don't do all the talking like I'm doing right now. If we were in class, we would all be talking, but this is our setup and we're going to go with it. So take turns. Don't do all the talking. Allow your child to understand what we call serve and return, conversational terms. You say something, I listen. I say something, you listen. Repeat and add to what your child say and do. Repeating is very important as well. You want your child to hear you say what they say, and every opportunity you can, add more to it to extend whatever it is you're talking about. And you never know, the next time your child is talking about that particular object or that particular event, he or she may pull up exactly what you said to extend that or to revisit that particular memory. Follow their lead. Do what interests your child. If they want to put on their pajamas and run around the living room and act silly and shake, join them. It's okay. You're at home right now. Nobody's going to see you doing your silly dance in your pajamas. It's okay. Encourage them and be positive. As much as possible, put that big old proud smile on your face as a mom. Let them know how you are enjoying what they're doing at that moment. Just remember to keep talking about it. Be silly, relax, and have fun. Okay? Now, with a lot of us at home during this quarantine time, you can be supporting talking in so many different ways outside of what you see here on the screen. And let me share something else that's important. This is not something we do over weeks. This is not something that we do over months. This is something that I'd like to recommend you do on a daily basis as much as possible. So we talked about supporting talking. How can we support vocabulary? How do you find yourself in a position of introducing your child to new words on a day-to-day basis? Don't think of anything new. This stuff is already out there. Go and pull from the nursery rhymes that your parents taught you, right? They have lots of silly words in them. You have rhyming words. So pull from the vocabulary or increase your child's vocabulary by pulling from some of your childhood memories. Itsy bitsy spider, right? And not only say the nursery rhyme, but actually go through the motions. That will be helpful as well to have your child do the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. How often do we hear the word spout? So when you think about some of these nursery rhymes that you're wanting to introduce to your child, look at the nursery rhyme prior to introducing it to your child. And wherever there's an opportunity to extend or to show more about a vocabulary word like a spout, since it's something that they don't hear every day, find a way to show a picture of what a spout is. So they're not just saying nursery rhymes and saying words of things that they may be unfamiliar with. So as much as possible, go through the nursery rhyme, find opportunities to extend and support vocabulary, and bring out pictures to help your child actually remember what that particular word may mean. You have Jack and Jill, pat a cake, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Come on, I know y'all know these nursery rhymes. Then you have wheels on the bus going around and around. Old MacDonald, who had a farm where you're able to identify animals, right? All of these nursery rhymes have meaning, significance, not only vocabulary development, but ways to have fun and ways to sing. We talked about talking is teaching, but reading is teaching and singing is teaching. So find as many opportunities as you can on a daily basis to not only talk, but to read and to sing as well. And then who does not love 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed? One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor and the doctor said, put those monkeys straight to bed. Okay? So a bunch of different nursery rhymes, and there are more out there, but here are some ways in which you parents can support vocabulary. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with DJ and Kingston. This particular video went viral sometime last year where we were able to, that's not good, where we were able to see this particular dad and his son engaged in conversation. DJ is the dad on the left-hand side, and Kingston is the son on the right-hand side, who is an 18-month-old. And what he's doing is having a conversation with his dad. And it looks like we're having technical difficulties. My plan was to show you this particular video. But for those of you who are seeing this picture at this time, just take a screenshot of it. Just put your phone up, take a picture of this particular slide. I couldn't get my words out. take a picture of this particular slide and just go look up DJ in Kingston. It's right there on YouTube. And what I wanted to show you is how this dad and his son engages in conversation. Kingston is 18 months old. He fully understands turn taking. His dad says something, Kingston says something. Dad talks, Kingston listens. Not only is it a back and forth or serve and return type conversation, DJ has the body language or the moves to go along with his talking. He's very expressive. He's very excited to talk to his dad. And what is the obvious, parents, is that this wasn't their first time doing this. So don't underestimate the power of being able to talk to your child, even as young as this particular baby is, which is 18 months, because ultimately this could be you and your child sitting on the sofa engaged in conversation. So here is another point where we're kind of going to stop and just allow you to process out a little bit, give you a chance to write down a question if you have any, give you a chance to just pull everything together. I've been doing a lot of talking. You've received a lot of information, but now I'd like to revisit why we came together today. The expected outcomes was for me to have you identify some language and communication milestones. And again, if the age of your child was not highlighted in this particular presentation, don't forget to go to CDC and look up milestones so that you're able to see where your child is developmentally. Learn to make small moments big. That is through nursery rhymes, that is through book reading, being able to drop down to their level, being able to stop and be in a tune or stop and tune into what's going on with your child at that time, and just finding ways when you're transitioning from one place to another, just using that opportunity to build language as much as possible. And we also talked about you getting a few tips to increase your child's language around when you're talking, when you're singing, or when you're reading. So this is what I came in to do today, and hopefully each of you who have tuned into today's session have fully gained an understanding of what the goal of this particular session was. At this time, there is Monet, who is my co-facilitator today, is going to drop a survey into the chat box. And so if you don't mind completing it, I would really appreciate it. We enjoy doing this session. These sessions with feedback is critical, and we definitely appreciate your thoughts and feelings concerning how we can improve or what actually worked well for you today. So I know at this time we may have some questions, but I wanted to just remind you that we are the Parenting Center at Children's Hospital. We are conducting classes online, and we're doing many things here to help support the everyday challenges that you as parents may have. Our phone number is there. Our website is there. If you'd like to learn more about who we are at the Parenting Center, I strongly encourage that you visit our website or simply give us a call, and we'll be glad to share with you who we are. Are there any questions at this time, Monet? No questions?
I do have a question that came in, but before that, I do have a comment as well about the CDC website. They also have an app that you can download that has all the milestones, and so you can click on the age of your child and see what milestones they could be reaching at that point. Like it was mentioned before, your child might be more advanced, they might be taking more time to reach those milestones, but the important thing is that you have that guide, and if you do have concerns, that you're going to your pediatrician and bringing up those concerns to them, and they can advise you on what steps you should take next. One
Absolutely.
question.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, one question that we have here. They said, my child wants to read the same book over and over again. Should I encourage them to read other books to expose them to new words? Or is it okay that we're reading, you know, the same Pete the Cat story every night because that's their favorite?
Right. I would say that it's absolutely okay to read the same book over and over again. Kids learn best through repetition. So obviously that's a book that your child learns, your child enjoys. If there are opportunities for you to pull more into that book, then I would encourage you to do so. And an example would be if there are cats and dogs in that particular story, maybe on your phone or prior to sitting down reading that book, you just find a variety of different dogs, brown dogs, black dogs, big dogs, small dogs. So while you're still reading the same book, you are assisting that child with learning more about something that they're already interested in. You could also pull a few additional books that have dogs in them. And after you read the favorite book, you can share, oh, look, I have another book on dogs. I wonder what type of dogs are going to be in this book. And so you can introduce additional books, but you still want to keep that initial book that they enjoy so much around as the comfort zone for what they're most interested in.
Great. If anyone has any other questions, if you want to submit them to the Q&A real quick. Otherwise, thank you, Patrice, so much for that great presentation and amazing information. If everyone just wants to check out, we have other series of our In Dialogue sessions posted on Louisiana Children's Museum website. We have our session from last week with Patrice about school readiness, and make sure you check out the rest of the resources that the Parenting Center and the museum has to offer.
Thanks, everybody, and keep talking.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.